Oh. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Stubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Narayana. Hariom and good evening from Niagara Falls. The difference between a revolution and evolution. With a revolution, others can help you. Historically, if you think of the revolutions around the world, a person started and others helped. As for evolution, evolution can only be initiated and facilitated by oneself. An external evolution perhaps can be helped by another. An internal evolution cannot be helped by another. This is an independent journey. It's an independent change. And the more one is aware of this, the more one takes responsibility for their growth or shrinking in life. The reason I'm sharing this is because eventually Bhagavan Krishna is going to tell Prince Arjuna, now you do what you feel is right. After lots and lots and lots of listening and talking, this is what's going to come. Srimad Bhagavad Gita has given us shlokas, verses, to internalize. Puja Swami Tejamayanda has given us the vision of all of these shlokas put together. The Chinmaya International Foundation has come up with questionnaires to scare us and make sure that we are flowing with the teachings, with the vision. This course is elaborating on all that Bhagavad Gita Guruji CIF is sharing. All of you amongst yourselves, the discussions that we engage in, this helps us more, and the practices that are given. If you take all of the components of what we've been experiencing for the last 46 classes, all of this is training to follow Dharma. Every facet of our experience together is training to follow Dharma, to follow that which is right, because right is might. Prince Arjuna is a warrior in a battlefield. We have to make ourselves warriors in the battle that is every day. Reviewing chapter 17. To evolve, one has to be careful about their intention and the implementation of that intention. If there's a flaw in the intention or implementation, then that evolution doesn't manifest. And I feel a great example of that is capitalism. Capitalism does not work. The implementation may work, but what is the intention of capitalism? Because we see that the rich keep getting richer, the good schools keep becoming better, and on and on and on. What happens to those who are trying to grow wealth? What if I'm in a neighborhood where that school doesn't have resources? Then that cycle continues, correct? Maybe the intention of capitalism is not inclusive enough. And here's where our Shastras, they have a more communal perspective, that we should live our lives with a focus on yajna, tapa, and dana, serving, investing, and sharing. We had studied how 1/3 of what we earn is for today, 1/3 for tomorrow, 1/3 for others. To follow such a teaching, that necessitates us to live simply. Many of us, we justify not following this, and that justification shows the complexity in the way that our intention is, our implementation is. We pull down the philosophy rather than rise up to the philosophy. See, we can't evolve then if the intention, if the implementation is not pure. Looking at yajna, tapa, and dana generally, Sattvic yajna is being selfless. Rajasic yajna is being selfish. And tamasic yajna is when all involved is poor. Poor intention, poor implementation. Sattvic tapa, and there's various dimensions of tapa. There is physical, there's verbal, there's mental. I'm only going to highlight verbal. Sattvic tapa is engaging in a samvada. Samvada is a dialogue where the focus is understanding. Rajasic tapa is vivada. Vivada is not about understanding, it's about argumentation. It's very legal. And tamasic tapa is bheda. Not even for the sake of arguing, for the sake of separating, distancing oneself from another. Sattvic dana is giving graciously. Rajasic dana is giving calculatingly. And tamasic dana is giving uselessly. All of this is to be analyzed within oneself. That is what evolution is. To try to understand my intention, to try to understand my implementation. With the completion of chapter 17, we now reach the final chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 18 is a summary of all that we have studied. This is Bhagavan Krishna's valedictory speech. Prince Arjuna, this is where you were, this is where you can be. I'm about to finish. The war has to be fought. It's like I've shared with all of you many times. After we study in our Vedanta course, they ask us to leave. No more theory. Time to apply. To appreciate this chapter, one has to remember how Prince Arjuna was. Sitting in his chariot, bow dropped, his head is in his hands. He's told Bhagavan Krishna, I'm not going to fight, I'm not going to speak. And now, where Prince Arjuna is, he's slowly picking up that bow. He has his hands on it. He may not have picked it up, but his hands are on it. He is standing up. He's looking at Bhagavan Krishna in the eye, and past Bhagavan Krishna too, to what his responsibilities are. And this change in Prince Arjuna, this evolution, is because he's come to appreciate the presence of his ego. Prince Arjuna's ego is making him hold on to smallness. He has already let go of Dharma and Pandava. He's only holding on to Arjuna. Holding on to smallness, holding on to our habits, holding on to our notions. This hurts us. And so in chapter 18, Prince Arjuna knows he has to let go. Let go of that smallness, let go of identifying with just himself, that selfishness. And he wants to know, what does it mean to let go? He wants to know how to let go in detail. This is what is lovely about Prince Arjuna. He doesn't want to know anything generally. He wants to know specifically, so there's no doubt. Where there is clarity, there is conviction, there is confidence. But if that clarity is not there, there can never be conviction and confidence. The words Prince Arjuna uses, he asks Bhagavan Krishna, tell me, what is the difference between Tyaga and Sannyasa? Tyaga and Sannyasa. And Pujya Swami Tejamananda writes so beautifully to introduce this subject. He highlights how our scriptures, our shastras, are filled with narrations of rulers who let go, who went to the forest and engaged in satsang. Raja Parikshita is a fine example of that. How we have leaders who bowed down to sages, like Raja Dashatha with Rishi Vashishta. Does Tyaga and Sannyasa mean letting go of possessions? Or does it mean letting go of possessiveness? Possessions is out here, possessiveness is deeper than that. Or is Tyaga and Sannyasa letting go of the notion of letting go? Because there's a pride in that too. Look at how much I've let go of. Look at how sattvic I am. So there's lots to think about in regards to Tyaga and Sannyasa. And Bhagavan Krishna shares in the opening shlokas. He says some people think renunciation is renunciation of wrong actions. That's what sannyasa is. So letting go, not engaging in nishiddha karma, that which is prohibited. Kamya karma, that which is selfish. Others interpret sannyasa as letting go of results. Karma phala tyaga, not focusing on the future, that which is out of control. Others, the more strict in mind, and I'm not saying disciplined, I'm saying strict in mind, they say sannyasa is letting go of all actions. Doesn't matter if it's bad or good, if it's the phala or the karma. And I'll share with you what I read from Sri Ramana this week. He has shared, sannyasa is only the renunciation of the I thought. Sannyasa is only the renunciation of the I thought and not the rejection of the external objects. And not the rejection of the external objects. This is 18.1 to 18.3. This is how chapter 18 begins and the content that Bhagavan Krishna will focus on. 18.4 to 18.7. Bhagavan says after he elaborates on these various interpretations, one can never stop engaging in dharma. And that's how I began our class today also. And Bhagavan says dharma is yajna, dana, and tapa. He's defining dharma as yajna, dana, and tapa. So we have to engage in serving, in sharing, in investing. So thinking about Tyaga and Sannyasa, it's not of serving and sharing and investing. It is Tyaga of Raga. That's what letting go is. Letting go of attachment. And I'd shared last week when we engage in aparigraha, when I let go of my dependence on materials, I slowly develop araga. I let go of attachment. And with the letting go of attachment, I reach amana, which is letting go of the ego. So the first definition for tyaga and sannyasa, tyaga is letting go of raga, of attachment. This is training to let go of the ego. And we've studied this actually. This is chapter 2 and 3. And I'll just change the words for you. Tyaga leads to sannyasa in the same way that karma yoga leads to jnana yoga. Tyaga leads to sannyasa like karma yoga leads to jnana yoga. And the example that was given is, for those of you who have been to Niagara Falls, if you want to go from Niagara Falls to Toronto, you have to take the QEW, and then you can take the 401 or the 403, various other roads. But you can't get to the 400 series unless you've gone through the QEW. And if you're on the QEW, it's going to lead you to the 400 series. So really, it is one road. It simply is the focus on the beginning or the end, but it's one road. Tyaga leads to sannyasa. So for all of us, our egos will say, let's practice sannyasa. But the ego is still present there, correct? Sannyasa is letting go of the ego. How do I train myself? By letting go of attachment. And as people who have a lot of various responsibilities, householders, grahastas, attachment is a killer. It kills our shanti, it kills our sadhana. These teachings are very important. In this chapter, Bhagavan Krishna approaches yajna, dana, and tapa differently than chapter 17. And here's how. At the end of our classes, at the end of any knowledge session, the last words we say are Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. That is the tradition and technique in how we are to say Shanti also. The first Shanti is loud. It is for faraway forces. This is called Adi Daivik, that which is divine. So you say, let there be Shanti there. Adi Daivik, we have no control over. Zero control over is Adi Daivik, like an ice storm. The Northeast has gone through an ice storm. We have had to cancel so many classes the last few days. Adi Daivik. Then we say Om Shantihi. That's for nearby forces. That's Adi Bhautik. These forces are not uncontrollable. They're pseudo-controllable. Like if you're in a movie theater and someone's making a lot of noise, you can go and tell them to not make noise. Okay? And then finally, Adhyatmik, which is forces within. And this we have full control over. So no control, pseudo-control, and full control. No pseudo, full. And this is where you have to put on, you have to layer on top of this, yajna is to be offered to the Adi Daivik forces. Dana is to be offered to the Adi Bhautik forces, and tapa is to be offered to the Adhyatmic forces. What can I do for unseen forces to bring Shanti? Yajna. Tyaga is to let go of attachment, not of dharma. I should engage in yajna to bring Shanti to unseen forces, uncontrollable forces. I should engage in dana for the community around me. That brings peace there. And I should engage in tapa to bring peace within myself, the body and the mind. We tend to associate the words yajna, dana, and tapa as sadhanas. But if you're thinking carefully, here Bhagavan is saying they're not sadhanas, they are dharma. See, sadhanas we think only seekers do in the morning. But dharma we all do, correct? I have this dharma and that dharma. Here Bhagavan Krishna is saying, take this offline. Take this out of your puja room. Make this your lifestyle. I had asked all of you, what is the most significant practice that you've incorporated into your lifestyle based on the teachings of Bhagavad Gita? What I had shared for myself is, all is sadhana. All is sadhana. And I'm happy because this is what Bhagavan is saying in chapter 18 is, what you think as sadhana is actually your dharma. A tyagi is someone who's engaged in yajna, dana, tapa. It is not someone who has given up wrong actions only, someone who's given up results only, someone who's given up all actions only. Puja Guruji shares in the writing here that holding on is much easier than letting go. Being attached is much easier than being loving. Holding on is the path of least resistance. Letting go is the path of most resistance, which is why training is needed. Training is needed. Bhagavan says sattvic tyaga. Tyaga is for sannyasa. We're letting go of our ego. Training ourselves to let go, to reach sattvic tyaga. Sattvic tyaga is natural. It is effortless. Like someone who's a morning person, getting up in the morning is effortless. It is staying up at night that is very difficult for them. Rajasic tyaga is forced. Whenever we have our kids camp and youth camps, my first question to all of the kids and youth there is, I give them 3 options. Option number 1, you chose to come to this camp. Option number 2, your parents chose for you to come to this camp. And option number 3 is, it's a mixture of you and your parents. So the ones who have their hand up for number 1, we chose to come to this camp, sattvic tyaga, correct? They're naturally flowing into yajna, dana, tapa. And those who say, my parents enrolled me in this camp, rajasic tyaga. They're also engaged in tyaga, but they were forced to do that. Like some of you in this course, correct? That one of you, like one of the spouses has signed up for this course and the other one just keeps on having to be there to set up Zoom. I don't know how to type up my questionnaire. Tamasic tyaga is impulsive. It is a reaction. There's no thinking involved. Just to give you a reference point for this, when I was studying in the Vedanta course, there were students there who lied to their parents about where they're going. They lied to even the administrators of our course, saying that they have permission to be there. So there are these false positives. I also was a false positive. There was no lying, but I was a false positive for these Vedanta courses. It's impulsive. Tyaga, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, is of karma, but don't think of karma as yajna, dana, and tapa. It is meaningless karma. It is karma that is not helping us to evolve. That's what this final teaching is of Bhagavan Krishna is. Bring meaning into Maya, and Maya vanishes. And so Prince Arjuna is most clear about this. Bhagavan dissects karma in a most thorough way. He says for every karma there are 5 parts. Okay, and I'll introduce this to you. And We can review this again next week. Number 1, adhisthana. Adhisthana is the first part to every action. This is the body. The adhisthana is the body. Number 2 is the karta. The karta is the doer, the one who's doing with this body. Number 3 is the karana. The karana is the mind. I'm the doer, and what causes whatever to be done is the mind, which makes the body move. Number 4 is the cheshta. The cheshta is the breath, How the mind makes the body move, breath is required. Otherwise, the body won't move. And number 5 is the deva, which is the gods, like wind and sun and so on. Okay. I'm going to change all of the words, looking at this differently. The adhisthana, or I'll go from inner to outer, okay? So let's start with the karta is the owner. The karta is the owner. The karana is the software. The cheshta is the energy. The adhisthana is the hardware. And the deva is the environment. Vivek is the owner. Vivek's mind is the karana. Vivek's mind needs energy to be able to go out, cheshta. That energy makes the body move. That is the adhisthana. And I need an environment, correct? I need Zoom. I need Wi-Fi. And on and on and on. That's the only way any action can take place. Without these 5 factors, action cannot take place. And now I know you're thinking, why? Why is this the last message? Why are we going into such details? But think, why Bhagavan is dissecting action in such detail? Nowhere in here has the spirit been mentioned. Nowhere in karma has Atma been mentioned. Karma is a game of the ego. And by going into such depth into our actions, Bhagavan is teaching Prince Arjuna anahangaraha. Ahamkaraha means aham karoti. I am doing. But the more I know action, I realize anahangaraha. I am not doing. And this comes back to Prince Arjuna's reason not to fight, because I am the one who's going to cause killing, and I am going to be killed. Prince Arjuna has not understood action. His ego is there. And Bhagavan is saying, the spirit does not kill, the spirit cannot be killed. Oh.